Good afternoon, everyone. Honored guests, we are very excited to have you here. And this is an exciting time for the Department of Plant Pathology, USDA-ARS Cereal Disease Lab, and the University of Minnesota, because we have opening up a new facility, research facility, that's going to help us in combating cereal diseases, but more generally, essentially bring our research in focus on plant diseases. And as we know, plant diseases do not know boundaries. They cross state boundaries, national boundaries, and global boundaries. So this is a very good occasion to essentially celebrate our efforts and essentially how we are expanding that effort to combat plant diseases. So I'm supposed to keep everyone on task and make it short and sweet. So I would like to introduce Provost Hansen from the University of Minnesota.
Thank you very much, and I'll do the same. But I am delighted to welcome you here this evening, especially our guests from the American Phytopathological Society and the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, the USDA, and USAID. I hope that if you're visiting the campus, that you're enjoying your time here, both in Minneapolis, where I understand the meetings will take place, and on the beautiful St. Paul campus. It is a particularly lovely and verdant time to visit. I was just once again felt restored as I drove through the plots on the way in here. But in particular this evening, I want to welcome Minnesota Agricultural Commissioner Dave Fredrickson and Robert Materi, Midwest Area Director of the USDA Agricultural Research Service. I would also like to point out, I wasn't sure that I saw University of Minnesota Vice President for Research, Brian Herman, here. He may have gotten caught in the, there, Francis is here. There. I was thinking there was a lot of... the Vikings traffic was doing some of us in. And also Meredith McQuaid, Associate Vice President and Dean of International Programs. The Office of the Vice President for Research is, of course, deeply supportive of the important agricultural research going on here at the University of Minnesota. And Meredith, heading up our Office of International Affairs, plays a key role in the University of Minnesota's global engagement. There's Meredith. Finally, congratulations on the opening of the new greenhouse to CFANS Dean Brian Boer, Jim Braden, Head of Plant Pathology, and Shahryar Kunyan, Research Leader of the Cereal Disease Lab. International agriculture is a signal part of the University of Minnesota, both historically, as seen in the legacy of Norman Borlaug, and in our future, as evidenced, I think, by the prominence it will have in the new university strategic plan, which we're completing this summer, as well as, of course, by this new greenhouse. We're proud that the university is home to one of the largest concentrations of cereal rust experts in the world. These cereal grain researchers created the Stakman-Borlaug Center for Plant Health, a multidisciplinary group of scientists that will take a broader view of international agricultural productivity and plant health. We look forward to the results of this group's partnerships with the USDA and USAID as they, in collaboration, of course, with our other agricultural scientists, work to address the challenge of feeding a hungry world. Again, thank you all for being here, and I'll turn things over to Brian and Jim.
Now I'll ask Dr. Materi, the Midwest Area Director for USDA-ARS Research Service, to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Shahryar. Very excited to be here, and was very excited 2 hours ago when I learned I was on the speaking agenda. So, so this will be rather short, but there's a lot of good things to say. It's going to be, I think, an easy talk. I've been on the job as the Midwest Area Director for just a little over 2 years now. When I first landed in the office here and I was opening up the doors, I found this one of the first things I ran across was this little medallion. I don't know if people recognize it, but this is the medallion for the groundbreaking ceremony for the quarantine greenhouse, which was since June 13, 2011. So a little over 3 years, as construction projects go, not too bad, could have been a little better. There were bumps along the way, it was funny, they tagged me as one of the organizational representatives for the project, and I immediately tagged Les Szabo. Where is Les? Is Les here? And Les took care of all the quarterly reports to USAID, who provided the funding for it. Thank you, Nora. And was right there with the contractors, keeping them on task and actually finding and correcting some problems on the fly. So for doing the heavy lifting, wow. Really nice job. And with the significance and importance of this this new facility is reflected by just so many things. Very seldom do we get two national program leaders at the same time from Agricultural Research Service to be in at these events. So and a representative from our Office of International Research Programs. So we have Arlene Santos, Office of International Research Programs, Roy Scott, one of our national program leaders, Deb Prevel, also our head on plant pathology. So a real stellar lineup, and welcome and thank you for coming here to celebrate this grand opening with us. And I'm talking the collective we, with excellent partnership with the university and then our ARS laboratory. I think you're not going to have a better lineup of rust experts, pathologists, geneticists working on both the pathogen and the crop side anywhere. Funding has been a little tough over the last couple of years, and reflective of the importance of this work and the support of many stakeholders, partners, our national program leaders. We were fortunate to have a pretty good program increase of this year of $270,000 to the lab, which will be extremely well utilized. Very, very glad to see that. So many issues, so many challenges. This is the front line, keeping those very invasive rusts that, if they come into this country, we've got some very serious issues that we're going to have to deal with. So just recognize the depth and the expertise of the collective partnership, and also take the opportunity to, while we're here highlighting the personnel and the program in the laboratory, to ask, is Matt Rouse somewhere? Matt, you can stand up. Just introduce Rouse as the Midwest Area Early Career Scientist of the Year for 2014. Okay. So again, this is a great day. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming out and helping us celebrate. With that, I'll hand it over to the next speaker. Thanks.
Just a couple of notes. If anybody else wants the medallions, I have extra ones in the CDL. I can hand them out as you walk in there. And none of this is possible without collaboration with the University of Minnesota. I mean, we don't live in an island, and we all work together to essentially accomplish a lot more than any individual can. As I keep telling my postdocs and students, the most successful animals are pack hunters. So work together to essentially succeed at things. So without further ado, I'd like to call Dr. Brian Burr, the new Dean of College of Agriculture, Food System, Agriculture, and Natural Resources, right? The CFANS.
That's close. Thank you. Yeah. I like when plant scientists use animal pack metaphors. It kind of warms the heart on what they're doing. But I want to thank, first I want to welcome several guests here, of course. Thank Provost Hanson for attending today. Meredith McQuaid is here from the GPS Alliance office, supporting international programs, of course, and Vice President Herman's office. Frances Lawrence is some here, hidden in here. She couldn't be found before. So thank you all for joining us, because for our campus, again, just as was said, we are in an interdisciplinary context of this. We work across plant diseases, animal diseases, very broadly across even nutrition and human health aspects. And on an international scale, it's a very important part of our programs. And I'm particularly thankful this last spring. I'm an applied economist, which is strange, but this last spring I went through the Bsl3, Bsl2 labs on a tour with the CDL staff and so on while Sunny Ramaswamy was here. And the level of work and the quality of work and the researchers there are immediately impressed on us as far as what we can accomplish here at the university. And it's through that collaboration funding that came from USAID, that came along with USDA-CDL, and that partnership in bringing together this tremendous set of resources in Minnesota. And of course our cold weather, because things can't survive here in the winter, and that's a nice natural benefit to have related to international work in this area. But one of the things we also have in CFANS that many are familiar with, we have a long history of international research. And I just want to talk about one of those. Of course, everybody recognizes Borlaug as a key component of internationalizing our programs, and of course the Green Revolution and the impacts of semi-dwarf varieties of wheat. Along those lines, if you walk down the block here, there's a gentleman named Vern Rutan that some of you may have known, who was an economist who worked on international development, wrote the idea of induced innovation and how we adapt technologies to suit the needs of an international economy. And I bring those two up because, again, and this is largely at the vision and direction of the plant pathology department, which is a tremendous program here with several. I look at the faculty around here, and clearly I wonder sometimes why I'm up here and not out there. But are looking at trying to develop, there's the Stakeman Cereal Disease Initiative that's being revamped to be the Stakman-Borlaug Stakeman. Which way do you go? Thank you, Center for Plant Health. But I'm getting that right, Jim?
Stakman-Borlaug Center for Sustainable Plant Health.
You keep adding words. Thank you. I should know that better. Which is kind of a collaboration across campus related to international projects in cereals disease health and agricultural health, and it includes working with cross-disciplinary activities such as applied economics and landscape mapping of pests and diseases, knowing that all these are transboundary issues. They go across the globe. And one of the fascinating aspects when we're looking at these landscape issues across the globe is to look at how that's going to change as we face pressures from climate change and other activities. So you start to bring in the soil water climate programs, the agronomy programs, you bring in applied economics looking at how do those affect us. And then we always get the question within our region of why is Minnesota so engaged in international programs? It's partly that disease pressure, but at the same time we're going to start to see the world evolve in its landscape for production of crops. That we're going to see people expanding in crop intensity and others are reducing crop intensity because of soil conditions, weather conditions, pest pressures, and so on. And a lot of this work is related towards modeling how that happens. And so for Minnesota, fortunately, it appears from climate models, we're going to be one of those areas that has the possibility of intensifying agriculture and serving regions which might have more drought-prone conditions, reduced soil quality issues, and so on, pest pressures. And so we're going to be intensifying, and that intensifies the pressures on our resources. So the idea I'd like to express, one of the things we're looking at is food is going to become that virtual trade in natural resources. You can't move natural resources around the globe. They're somewhat static, and we're going to see this pressure and intensification occurring. And it ties together, that sort of an idea ties together many of the disciplines and activities we have here at the University of Minnesota, working with USDA in partnership, working across disciplines in the medical school and so on. So this initiative that we really appreciate Plant Pathology hosting today sort of manifests what our goals are related to international programs, the importance of it in food and ag. So we're proud to be part of that. We're happy to partner with all of you here, and thank you for your participation and collaboration. We look forward to doing this for many years now with the new facilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. And I wanted to mention there is something that Dr. Bear mentioned, is the Stakman-Borlaug. And this was the 100-year anniversary of Borlaug's birth. So it's fortuitous that the greenhouse is opening on the same year. So I'm wondering if Les had something to do with delaying it or what happened. But everything is happening. All the stars are lining up in the sky. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Jim Breeden, who is the professor and head of Department of Plant Pathology, to tell you more about our international work and how we collaborate together to essentially accomplish more. Jim.
So thank you, Sharyar, and thank you, dear guests, for being here. We're delighted to have so many wonderful friends and folks from so many different walks of life here to celebrate the new greenhouse at the USDA facility here on campus. And it's my pleasure to tell you a bit about the Department of Plant Pathology and what we're doing for international ag. Now, it's my distinct pleasure as head of the department to work every day with an incredible group of scientists, people that are really passionate about agriculture and people that are truly dedicated to changing the world in very positive ways. Our department is more than 100 years old. Our relationship with the USDA-ARS is close to that long as well, and it's been a very fruitful relationship. And from the very beginning to this very moment, our department has always been committed to agriculture in the state of Minnesota, agriculture in the upper Midwest, and agriculture throughout the United States. So that's always been true. That's true today. At the same time, we've always had an extensive footprint in international agriculture, both in terms of student training and in terms of research. And we see that international emphasis as really being consistent with the land-grant mission of this university, being consistent with the objectives of the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences, and really being an integral part of our ability to respond to threats that could impact Minnesota growers. And particularly as plant pathologists, we're well aware that soybean rust or maize lethal necrosis or that next epidemic of wheat stem rust is literally only a plane ride away. So our international research and capacity building efforts are really integral to our ability to do our job here at home. So our department has a very long and illustrious history in international agriculture. We've trained some of the greats in the field, including E.C. Stakeman, who did his master's and PhD at University of Minnesota. He was a longtime leader of the Department of Plant Pathology, and he was just really a grandfather of plant pathology. It's hard to overestimate the importance of this scientist to the field, shaping plant pathology not only as we know it in Minnesota today, but really globally. E.C. Stakeman convinced one of our graduates, George Harar, to move to Mexico to be the first leader of the Mexico project, which was run by the Rockefeller Foundation. And George Harar was quite successful in that effort. The Mexico project actually grew into what we know as CIMMYT today. And George Harar went on to become the president of the Rockefeller Foundation, and in that capacity founded IRRI, the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines. And CIMMYT and IRRI over time have been joined by 13 other international research centers across the globe in what we know as the CGIAR system. George Harar hired another famous, well-known Minnesota graduate, Norman Borlaug. And it was really at CIMMYT that Norman Borlaug initiated his efforts that would become known as the Green Revolution. And Norman Borlaug, of course, has been credited with saving 1 billion lives. To me, one of the most inspiring aspects of this man, though, is that even in his 90s, he was never looking back. He was never resting on his laurels. He was looking ahead at the problems facing international agriculture and working to the last moment to ensure global food security. And I find that truly, truly inspiring. Our department also trained Sir Bent Scovman, who did both master's and PhD in our department. And he was really a pioneer of recognizing the importance of crop wild relatives and gene bank collections. He was the director of the Nordic Gene Bank, and in that capacity oversaw the construction of the Svalbard International Seed Vault, also known as the Doomsday Vault, up in the Arctic Circle. And he was actually knighted in Denmark as well. So our department has a strong and illustrious history in international agriculture, and that tradition continues today. And of course, our faculty are actively engaged in agriculture in Minnesota and throughout the United States. But we're also in countries throughout the Americas, throughout Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and Africa. And the projects that our faculty are engaged in are quite diverse, ranging from Melania Figueroa, who works with colleagues in Australia. In fact, she's, I think, just off the plane from Australia, working on model grass systems to understand the mechanisms of disease resistance. Carol Ishimaru has worked with colleagues in Switzerland on bacterial diseases of potato. Ben Lockhart is a virologist who works both in East and West Africa. Ruth Dilmaki works on small grain diseases in Norway. Jonathan Schilling, who is adjunct in our department and is a professor in the bioproducts and bioengineering, works on wood degradation in Costa Rica. Brian Stephenson works in several places of the world on crop wild relatives as sources of disease resistance genes for crop improvement. Madeline Smith is currently discussing partnerships with Canadian researchers on canola. Linda Kinkel is working in Uruguay on microbe-microbe interactions. Matt Rouse, who is our well-known USDA-ARS Cereal Disease Laboratory scientist and adjunct assistant professor in our department, is leading a project with USAID support to work on wheat stem rust in Africa, and we'll talk more about his research in just a moment. And even though it's not on the map, we also have researchers who are working in Antarctica. And so this is just a smattering of what we're doing. So I was amazed when I was pulling these data together to learn that our faculty today are in 48 countries around the globe, either doing research or having significant research collaborations, and we're on all 7 continents. Now, the international presence from University of Minnesota Department of Plant Pathology doesn't only entail faculty, but also extends to students. For example, one of our graduate students, Anil Adhikari, who was named the 2014 Norman E. Borlaug Fellow in International Agriculture with support from the Vala Henry Endowment, is a native of Nepal, is dedicated to learning plant pathology and using plant pathology to improve the plight of Nepalese farmers. He is spending the summer in Crookston, Minnesota at the Northwest Research and Outreach Center, working with a diverse collection of barley landraces from Ethiopia as sources of disease resistance. Another of our graduate students, Josh Kielsmeyer-Cook, is the 2014 C. Jerry Nelson International Fellowship winner, and will use his support to study wood decaying fungi in Ecuador. We also have in the atrium, during the wine and cheese reception that'll follow, you'll have opportunity to review research posters by Jordan Briggs and Patricia Vaz, one of our recent graduates, on their work in Ethiopia and Uganda. So this is really just a very quick overview of some of the current activities that our faculty, staff, and students are engaged in across the globe. And tonight, though, is not only about looking back historically at what we've done in international agriculture, and it's not even only about what we're doing today, but it's really about looking forward and asking what are the problems in international agriculture and how is plant pathology addressing those problems. And I can state that our department, our college, and this institution are very well aware of the challenges in international agriculture. And Dean Boer laid out some of those challenges very nicely a moment ago. And I can assure you that this department, this college, and this institution are aggressively addressing those issues. And I'm going to lay out 3 areas that are impacting plant pathology's ability to conduct agriculture research and student training on an international scale. The first is the often misquoted, but I think stupendously effective Stakman-Borlaug Center for Sustainable Plant Health, and we can all agree to call it the SBC. So the SBC is a newly formed center that leverages the significance of 2 very important University of Minnesota plant pathologists, E.C. Stakeman and Norman Borlaug. But this center is not only about plant pathology. The vision for the SBC is to form an umbrella for interdisciplinary response to challenges to food security and ecosystem health. And we see the center as facilitating interdisciplinary activities between plant pathologists and scientists in agronomy, economics, entomology, horticulture, plant breeding, and soil science. And the focus of research and outreach and teaching efforts in the Stakman-Borlaug Center focus on solving problems, using interdisciplinary teams to solve specific problems here at home and around the globe. And the Stakman-Borlaug Center in particular is well poised to serve as an administrative structure to manage large multinational, interdisciplinary, interinstitutional grants, and will serve effectively as a communications, outreach, and capacity building arm for scientists across multiple fields of study. Now, I'm going to give you a few examples of some of the current research activities within the SBC. First is a project that's led by Ben Lockhart, and Ben Lockhart is a virologist. This picture, by the way, is about 30 years old, so you may not recognize him. Ben's not with us tonight because Ben is actually in Kenya right now dealing with maize lethal necrosis. And maize lethal necrosis is a viral complex that is absolutely devastating maize production in Kenya and other Eastern African countries. About a year ago, Ben initiated a preliminary study of what needed to be done to respond to maize lethal necrosis, and with support from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has conducted studies on the etiology and epidemiology of this disease. So Ben, under the guise of the Stakman-Borlaug Center, has now built an interdisciplinary team of plant breeders, biotechnologists, entomologists, and plant pathologists to plan that next phase, what needs to be done next to deal with maize lethal necrosis. And the Stakman-Borlaug Center is serving as the administrative lead on a proposal currently with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for both a short-term and long-term response to maize lethal necrosis. The second project that I want to describe in some detail, I've already referenced a little bit. This is a project that's led by Matt Rouse from the Cereal Disease Lab and from the Department of Plant Pathology. And Matt has partnered with USAID, CIMMYT, and Cornell, and has built a team of interdisciplinary scientists, many of whom are in this room right now, to identify genetic resistance to new and virulent forms of wheat stem rust, primarily coming from Ethiopia and other African areas. So the research objectives really focus on identifying and ultimately deploying resistance to these new races of the fungus and studying the genetics and genomics of the pathogens themselves. And this project also has substantial capacity building efforts. These are led by Pablo Oliveira, who is with the USDA-ARS Cereal Disease Lab. Here you see Pablo working with researchers in Ethiopia, and here he's working with a diverse international group of researchers on the St. Paul campus. Now, for the last 3 years, Pablo has led a 6-week training workshop here in St. Paul that is geared towards bringing international scientists to St. Paul to understand, to build a capacity in the areas of phenotyping for rust resistance and deployment of resistance genes. So this has been a really effective model for us moving forward. This will be part of Matt Rouse's project within the Stakman-Borlaug Center. We're also looking at the short-term workshop as a model for the way international outreach could be done in the in the agriculture arena. And that's work that Brett Ahrens is leading. Brett is a teaching assistant professor in our department. He is also the director of the Plant Disease Clinic, which not only provides exceptional plant disease diagnostic services, it's also positioned as an educational provider for the Stakman-Borlaug Center. So under this vision, we would use that 6-week workshop model and expand that to other challenges to plant health. And we're working right now with CIMMYT to identify sources of funding and a way forward to make that training possible. We also see this as a way of building linkage between the University of Minnesota and CIMMYT in particular. And that's something that could grow into formal graduate training, perhaps novel models where students take courses here but conduct research at CIMMYT facilities across the globe. And this is something that could actually grow into a network involving land-grant universities and the entire CGIAR system. So this is something we're really interested in. It's coming out of work that Matt Rouse is doing now, but it's something that the Stakman-Borlaug Center is interested in cultivating moving forward. Very briefly, I wanted to mention that the Stakman-Borlaug Center and an interdisciplinary team of scientists here at the university, including plant pathologists, entomologists, and horticulturalists, have partnered with a major university somewhere in the United States on a proposal that we're currently preparing to USAID, requesting support for a biotechnology approach to solving a late blight of potato and insect shoot borer damage of eggplant in India, Bangladesh, and other Asian countries. So that's something to look forward to moving ahead. And the last project that I want to highlight within the Stakman-Borlaug Center research portfolio is funded through MnDRIVE. MnDRIVE stands for Minnesota's Discovery, Research, and Innovation Economy. And these are research dollars that come from the state legislature to the university for response in specific priority areas. And one of those priority areas is global food ventures. Now, I'm happy to announce that the Stakman-Borlaug Center, in partnership with INSTEP, the International Science, Technology, Practice, and Policy Center within CFANS, has been selected for funding And this project is designed to build a really novel linkage between economists and plant scientists. And the vision for this is to develop a rapid response platform that allows us to leverage both of these fields to good effect. And this project is transdisciplinary. It builds public-private partnerships, and it's really aimed at enhancing crops and protecting against pests and diseases. Now, there are actually multiple little angles that we're working with in this project, but in general, the emphasis is on crops that are important here in Minnesota and important globally. So, for example, we're conducting bioeconomic modeling of maize pests, including maize lethal necrosis that I spoke about a moment ago, as well as insect pests of maize. And on the plant science side, we're utilizing genomics and informatics to make better use of gene bank collections as sources of genes for improvement of pest, disease, resistance, and other traits within crops that are important here in Minnesota, including potato, soybean, wheat, and fruit crops such as apple and grape. Now, within this umbrella, I wanted to highlight just one aspect of our research. Leon Van Eck, who is a postdoc in the Department of Plant Pathology, is developing innovative, novel informatics platforms that take advantage of our advancing understanding of the genetic basis for disease resistance and high-throughput sequencing technologies. And he's really using this approach to leverage knowledge or to glean knowledge from evolutionary patterns that are left behind in disease resistance genes, and using that to actually predict function. So this complex genomics, informatics, economics partnership is poised to really allow us to advance agriculture here, locally, as well as internationally. So the Stakman-Borlaug Center really is this connecting umbrella that we believe positions Minnesota, University of Minnesota, the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences, and the Department of Plant Pathology in a perfect position to be responsive to some of these challenges to global agriculture. Now, another aspect that plant pathology is working on, of course, is student training and workforce development. And I'm happy to announce that with funding through the MnDRIVE initiative, this fall, for the very first time, undergraduate students at the University of Minnesota will be able to study sustainable plant health in a degree program. So working with colleagues in entomology and soil, water, and climate, plant pathology has initiated an undergraduate program of study within the plant science major in our college. And this program really is designed to train students for the local workforce, for the national workforce, and the international workforce in the area of plant science. And there's tremendous need right now for plant scientists, tremendous opportunity, and we're positioning our students well. Now, one of the innovative things that we're trying in this undergrad major is to really give students experiential learning, hands-on real-world training. And one of the key ways that we can do that is through internships. So as part of this MnDRIVE initiative, we're working on a plant sciences student internship database, and we need to come up with a shorter name, maybe a snappy acronym for that. So we're just starting out on this. But the vision for this is that this will be a clearinghouse that will connect students in the plant sciences with partners in agro-industry, government, and international agriculture. So if you're here tonight and you represent one of those entities and you want to be in on the ground floor in this novel internship idea, talk to me, please. We're looking for partners. We're trying to connect our students with hosts. And I think there's tremendous potential for this. So this is something that we'll be working on moving forward. Now, the last aspect that's influencing the department's ability to respond to challenges in international agriculture really relates to infrastructure. And this university and this college have significantly invested in both the physical and intellectual infrastructure here at the university. Of course, we're sitting in the beautiful Cargill building, which was designed to bring together scientists from multiple different fields of study, the commonality being that they all work on genomics technologies. And so there has been synergy by bringing these scientists together. And so this building is sort of indicative of a broader investment in omics technologies. Right across the street, we have a core facility with exceptional DNA, RNA sequencing, protein biology, microscopy and imaging facilities. We also have tremendous bioinformatics support here at the university, including the Minnesota Supercomputing Institute and the newly formed Informatics Institute, which is really geared towards enabling big data science. And both UMII and MSI are partners in our MnDRIVE efforts. They're really critical to that. Now, if you drove in along Larpenteur, you also saw some of our tremendous field resources. And Minnesota is a fantastic place to do field research. It's an absolute luxury to live in a major metropolitan area and have research plots right next to our building. But the research plots that you passed on the way in really are just the tip of the iceberg. Our college maintains an extensive network of research and outreach centers across the state that represent a multitude of agricultural production systems as well as natural ecosystems. And these are living laboratories that are really essential to our research as well as our student training. So they're an incredible resource for Minnesota. Finally, the last facility that I'd like to highlight is our exceptional greenhouse, range of greenhouses that we have here. And we have a modern state-of-the-art facilities for teaching and research. We have a Bsl3 facility, a biosafety level 2 facility that is used primarily for insect research. And this allows researchers here in Minnesota to bring in potentially dangerous insects that exist in other countries and study them safely right here on campus. We also have a Bsl3 Greenhouse, which is a higher level of biosafety, that really was built in a very unique partnership between the Minnesota Agriculture Experiment Station and Minnesota Department of Agriculture. Funding came from our state legislature, and we had tremendous support from the growers in the state that made this happen, so thank you for that. And the Bsl3 greenhouse that we have here on campus enables our researchers, our plant pathology researchers, to work on things like soybean rust or those exotic and very dangerous wheat rust pathogens that are emerging in Ethiopia. Melania Figueroa is looking at this facility to do coffee rust research. And coffee rust is a pathogen that is absolutely devastating coffee production and economies in Central America. So having these facilities on campus really enable our research. They impact research here in Minnesota, and they impact research globally. And of course, tonight we're here to really celebrate the Bsl2 greenhouse, the addition of a Bsl2 greenhouse for the USDA-ARS Cereal Disease Laboratory, so congratulations on that. So in closing, I'd like to highlight the fact that the Department of Plant Pathology, the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences, and the University of Minnesota recognize the multitude of challenges that we face in the international agriculture arena today. And the creation of the Stakman-Borlaug Center for Sustainable Plant Health brings together a multitude of scientists to work interdisciplinary on both a local and a global level. Our innovations in student training are advancing workforce here as well as globally, particularly in the area of sustainable plant health. And finally, these significant investments in infrastructure, such as what we're celebrating tonight, really enable research on a very significant scale. So in short, I invite you to expect great things from this institution, and I can assure you that we are ready to rise to the challenge. So thank you. And I want to take just a moment to say that pulling this event together was a monumental task in lots of ways. On the back of your program is a list of the people that made this possible. I especially want to thank Ann Lageson, who worked tirelessly to pull this together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Now you all know why I'm excited to be here at this time. It's just a great place to be and a great opportunity to do lots of great research. And none of our facility would have been possible without the help of USAID. They recognize that we need to do the research that we do. It contributes to international agriculture. and the health of the food that's grown globally. And without further ado, I have Dr. Nora Laptone. Advance your slide. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Nora Laptone, a good friend and a program officer, program director at USAID.
Thank you, Sharia. Program officer will do also. Honored guests, Provost Hansen, Vice President Herman, Dean Burr, Dr. Materi, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's my distinct pleasure to represent USAID tonight. Our boss, Rob Bertram, was here 3 years ago for the groundbreaking, and he couldn't be here tonight, but if he were here, he would be so happy to see what has been done with our investment. So this is really an exciting day for USDA-ARS, but it's also an exciting day for USAID because the state-of-the-art facility is a collaboration between our two agencies that's aimed at protecting wheat from devastating diseases like stem rust. So in Feed the Future, which is the US government's global hunger and food security initiative, our vision is to end hunger and poverty in the most vulnerable countries in the world. And in many of those countries, particularly in Asia, wheat is a major crop. So 1.2 billion poor people living on less than $1.25 a day are wheat dependent, and 2.5 billion poor people consume wheat. And so when we have, for those people who depend on wheat for their food and income, the loss of wheat crops due to stem rust or other devastating diseases means a loss of income and starvation for their families. So recognizing the importance of stem rust and other diseases to global food security, to our global food supply, USAID has made many investments to develop genetic resistance in crops, in wheat in particular, against stem rust, in partnerships with CGI-ARS centers that Jim has alluded to, in particular CIMMYT and ICARDA. But we also recognize that it is important to always constantly look out for emerging diseases, which can catch us by surprise. And this is what the Cereal Disease Lab and the expertise of its scientists bring. Because through the lab and the expertise that they bring, we can bring samples, they can test samples, stem rust samples from any part of the world, identify emerging pathogens, and develop genetic resistance even before the strains emerge. And so USAID's investment in expanding the greenhouses is really an important step to global food security. So with the five-fold increase, and Sharia tells me it's more than five-fold increase capacity in these greenhouses, this will enable USDA-ARS scientists to help partners from other countries to identify disease threats from samples that are sent from those countries. This is what Matt Rouse is doing with our Ethiopian scientists. This facility will strengthen international efforts that are funded by the U.S. and other donors like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And the work to be done here will support other USAID investments in wheat. For example, early this year, we launched the International Wheat Yield Partnership at the Borlaug BGRI meetings in Obregon, Mexico, which aims to increase wheat yields by 50% in 20 years. And the work that's done here will be very critical in achieving that goal. So The proposals will be coming out later this fall or in early spring, where that's in the works right now. And since STEMRAS knows no borders, this facility is critical to the health of U.S. wheat crops. So lastly, I'd like to acknowledge the ARS scientists who have been instrumental in the completion of this project. So I would like to mention Kay Simmons, Eugene Sabo, is that how you say it? Marty Carson and Shahryar Kanyan, who recently joined the CDL. So on behalf of USAID, I thank you. I thank you for all your efforts and congratulations on this accomplishment. And on behalf of the smallholder farmers who may never step foot in these greenhouses, but whose lives will be impacted by the work to be done for years to come in this facility, I congratulate you and I thank you. This facility is a legacy of, it will keep alive the legacy that Norman-Borlaug started, who advocated for constant vigilance against STEMRAS. In one of Norman-Borlaug's speeches, he said, while we continue to push the frontiers of science forward, we also must be mindful of the need to protect the gains already made. That's what this facility is about. Thank you.
So I'll thank you. Thank you for coming. Thanks, Jim, for organizing and for doing all the legwork. And I hope you guys all enjoy wine and cheese and talk with each other and see what are the opportunities that come next that we have to work on essentially to expand our capacity to help poor people. Thank you.